One, two. 1, 2. Hi, you're with Scott. This is my Twitch stream. It's midnight. It's always midnight. This is your right ear and your left ear because this is mono. And we're going to talk about how to talk to people you disagree with. So that's what's coming up. When Marla's finished with this ball, this squeaky, and then we can stream. But until then, you just got to have patience. This is ASMR, relaxing, just a calming. What? What do you want? You want to come to your daddy? No, you want your daddy to get that. Just calm and relaxing ASMR squeaky toys. He's biting my hand now. Okay, I just fell off. I fell off. The first time on stream. The first of many I stream. Because I fall off a lot. I fell off. So get that clip. I've got the fatty catty now as well. Oh, the big fatty catty. Here he is. Got him. Marlo the dog is chewing a little chewy bone, so you might be able to hear that gnawing in the background. How to talk to people you disagree with. Oh, the cat's scratching the chair. This is written by, I don't know, it's a pocket collection by Amy Mowers. So it's like a collection of articles. It just came up on the automatic, the internet automatically makes you look at things. And it just came up, like all these different articles before I could log on to the old internet. And it's like, have a look at this. So it was like, actually that doesn't look too bad, does it? Look, some of these things. So maybe this has been tailored to my specifications, but how to listen, how to find common ground, how to stop getting defensive. I don't get defensive. I don't know why you suggest that to me. I don't get defensive. How to change your mind. Conversations on polarizing topics are possible if you're up for it. Here's how to start. Why hostility can bring us closer together. In that you're physically close when you punch someone, aren't you? How to actually, don't punch anyone. That was a joke. Don't punch anyone. How to actually change someone's mind. Look, we're going to go for conversations on polarizing topics are possible. That's what we're going for. Caitlin Finton, all the way down the bottom here. Whee! Caitlin Vincent has written this. She's a PhD candidate in the psychology department at Cornell University. Let's try and keep this relaxing. I did that already. Look, she's a graduate student writing fellow. What? A graduate student writing fellow? I think a fellow might be like a term, like a terminology for something that you are, like a title. Graduate student writing fellow, because in England we just sort of say fellow, like chap. At the behavioural scientist, she specialises in behavioural and evolutionary neuroscience. Her research focuses on the neurobiology of social behaviour. So that's pretty, high tech, isn't it? The old brain science. Evolutionary neuroscience. Her research focuses on that with a specific emphasis on mating decisions in prairie voles. I didn't realise that was coming at the end. A specific emphasis on mating decisions in prairie voles. So, I mean, am I going to have to then show you what prairie voles are? She's a specialist. right? She's a specialist. So when it comes to talking about conversations on polarizing topics, the prairie voles specialist of Cornell University is the person to go to. Especially if you're interested in the mating decisions of said prairie voles. So she's written like an abstract conversational. I stared at the Thanksgiving turkey on my plate in awkward silence, embarrassed to have brought this disaster into my grandparents' house. He's brought me a squeak. The dog's brought me a squeak. That's going away. You lost that. You lost that, mate. I gave you a chewy. You chew your chewy for this. I'm not going to read through all this. They've had an argument over the Thanksgiving table. That you can read yourself. They've had an argument. We've all had arguments. You know what they are. Discussing controversial topics with our families and peers helps us learn and grow. We don't exist in a vacuum inside Henry, and we're not static like caravans. As people, we develop our ideas by interacting with each other's, testing our thinking and getting feedback. I mean, I guess that's kind of true. Although I also think there's something to be said for people who go and sit in a cave on their own and have a good think. You know, Robbie Burns wrote that poem about the spider. And the Buddha came up with Buddhism, didn't he? So you can do some stuff on your own. Conversations can reveal potentially relationship-ending opinions held by people we care about, and for many, the issues at stake represent actual existential threats. No, you can't have the squeaky. The squeaky's gone, son. It's gone. What's the best way to deal with polarising topics without resorting to yelling at each other? That's what we're here for, isn't it? That's what we want to know. So far, all this writing, a lot of typing, and we haven't got to it yet. But if you feel up for it, here are the ways you can start. Right, here we go then. Ding! Number 1, ditch the deficit model and approach conversations with the other person's background in mind. Before you even start a conversation with someone, take a step back and think about how their life... Take a step back. This is going to be good, isn't it? Hi, my name's Scott. It's nice to meet you. I'm just going to... Just before we... don't start speaking yet. I'm taking some time to think about how your life may have shaped your opinions. So what I instinctively, I think I get what she's trying to say here. You know, think about your I don't want to say opponent, do I? It's not opponents when you're talking to people. Think about your friends. I don't know, the people you're talking to. Think about their lives and their backgrounds and how it shaped their opinions. Yeah, I get that, but it's hard when you first meet someone, isn't it? Because you don't know much about their lives without asking them questions. So I guess the next thing would be ask them questions about themselves to try and find out how their lives have shaped their opinions. But by that point, you might be getting off topic. Especially if it's just like political debate on Question Time or something. I mean, some of the people on Question Time that I disagree with, I'd think, how has your life turned you into such a... But I wouldn't have to, you know, it doesn't matter to me why they've become such a mean person. It just matters that they are. I mean, we could try and get into that, but maybe there is something for that, you know, when bad people are doing mean things, maybe you could say, look, you know, I get it. People were mean to you when you were a kid. I don't know. Science communication research, science, all these are big words, aren't they, all in a row? Science communication research demonstrates that people's past experiences and beliefs can act as a perceptual filter and may change how people interact with scientific evidence. So that's really long words to say the things that happen to you can change the way you think, can colour the way you think. And I guess that's, you know, yeah, I agree, but it seems kind of patently obvious, doesn't it? But I guess what they're driving at here about the scientific evidence is that, you know, you might present the same factual data to somebody, to two different people, and they might read into it in different ways depending on their life's experiences. And you don't have the information to know how they're going to read into it. So, scientists have traditionally defaulted to a deficit model for communicating science. So we're on science now at the moment, just specifically science. I suppose this is behavioural scientist, but, you know, I don't only argue with people about science. I argue with them about all sorts of things. So they've traditionally defaulted to a deficit model. The assumption is that people don't trust the science on a certain topic because they don't know enough about it. The solution? Tell people the facts. and then they know about it and they can increase their support for it. Unfortunately for scientists, I was going to say, the deficit model has proven time and time again to be faulty. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about conspiracy theorists, isn't it? And yeah, people get funny ideas and you can show them the true evidential based science and then they'll still have funny ideas. So that doesn't work. Past experiences and cultural and religious identity shape how people interact with facts. Yeah. A repetition of the fact that your past shapes how you view things, and in some cases have a greater influence in shaping the opinions of people on controversial topics than actual knowledge about the topic. This holds true from topics from climate change to medical genetics. So what we've said in this number one so far, is this how you get a PhD? Is just by writing loads of words to say really simple things? What we've said is that people's lives shape how they think on everything. Take the use of nanotechnology for an example. Well, if you like. Nanotechnology focuses on interacting with materials at the atomic or molecular scale, which theoretically could allow us to build and manipulate any structure in existence. The potential of nanotechnology touches on ideas that highly religious people in particular may object to over fears of playing God. Right, here's something that I'm going to divert down now. And it is something that bugs me a little bit. Like, Richard Dawkins, a little while ago, probably about 20 years ago now, like poo-pooed all over God and religion. But he wasn't poo-pooing over every religion and God. He was really specifically poo-pooing the Bible and, you know, the things it says in the Bible and the scientific inaccuracies. And he was poo-pooing stuff. Hey, little doggy, stop messing your daddy. He was poo-pooing the Bible. And it's fair enough, you know, you can poo-poo the Bible. It's easy to rip it apart, isn't it? It was written and rewritten and translated and changed and, you know, and all that business. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Right. But, like, this whole thing about religious people object to science and therefore it's like a huge... Like, obviously, this is a scientist who's writing this and they may have had, like, some large religious backlash. And it may be that in one part of the world, like in America, there's quite a large financially backed evangelical Christian sort of lobbying group that push their agenda and their ideas. Yeah, that's true. That happens in American politics, but it's not sort of the case throughout the world all the time. In fact, in the UK, only 30% of people believe in any kind of God. Only 30%. So this thing about, like, you know, oh, science versus religion, like, you know, science versus religion. I don't think it needs to be that. I think people can, like, have a spiritual side to their existence. They can have a faith and also believe in the truths of science and find it hard to marry the two ideas. Yeah, but there are ideas in science that you find it hard to, like, fit in your brain that we can't even physically work out, like dark matter and, you know, and stuff like that. So yeah, there are big ideas we can't really deal with, and you don't have to poo-poo everyone else's ideas. You know, you can have faith and you can believe in science. And so it's funny to me when the scientists always get in this little tizzy about, oh, the religious people, because I don't really believe in the wider scheme of things in the whole world there is such a strong anti-science religious agenda as they seem to make out. But maybe if you're a scientist, you know, looking at their lives, looking at it through their eyes and how their life experience is, maybe if you're a strongly scientific person with a scientific agenda, you've come up against these religious ideas and people and lobbyists more than someone like me has. So maybe it's that, you know, maybe it's that. Little doggy, do you want to come here? Can you come here? Come to Daddy. Come on, Daddy's picking you up. He's had enough. He's picking you up. Here you are. Here you are now. Right then. Right then. Got the little doggy. So we got him. He's okay. A 2009 study, which Should we talk about that? A 2009 study specifically examined how support for nanotechnology varied with religiosity. It's about this nanotechnology versus religion. Knowing the science didn't matter, religion ultimately acted as a filter on the perceptions of nanotechnology. So there's a bee in the bonnet here about a particular issue in science and nanotechnology. Fine. I don't know how this is helping me deal with people when I'm arguing. We shape how we approach complex conversations by learning from the mistakes of the deficit model. Lecturing to people is unproductive, especially since experiences and personal identity have as much of an influence on opinions about a topic as facts, if not more. Instead, let's take the time to understand your conversation partner's past experiences and beliefs. Use this as information to tailor your message specifically to the identity of the person to whom you're talking. God, that sounds like marketing gumbo, doesn't it? What are they saying? Try and talk to them in their language. Is that what Hey, oh, you little catty. Fat catty, attack the dog then. Don't attack the dog. He doesn't like him sometimes. He went too close. All right. Animal fair, yeah. We're all going to calm down. So, we're going to get onto that, I suppose. Number 2, use personal stories. I'm going to do the noise of the keyboard. How should you shape the conversation if your goal is to change someone's mind on a controversial topic? Right, I didn't realise that was the case. I didn't know we had to change their mind. Like, he's scratching me back now. The other day, I had a conversation with somebody about vaccines. Yeah, we were having a conversation about vaccines and facts and about the efficacy of vaccines and stuff like that. And I thought my data or my reading of the data, maybe it's based on my life experience, I thought that was correct, and my friend thought that her reading of the data, maybe based on her life experience, is correct. So instead of arguing about it, we just both said, yeah, you know what, look, you think that and I think this, and it doesn't matter, that's fine, that's how we think. I'm not going to believe what you think, you're not going to believe what I think, and we're going to stop going on about it because it doesn't matter to us. Like, you know, when you get your vaccine, it'll work, and when I get mine, it'll work, and that's that. You know, so maybe that's a point to make in conversations on polarizing topics. Maybe it's okay for somebody to have their own polarized opinion and for you to just not change it. But maybe it's not, you know, maybe it's something we should be working on, how to change people's minds. That sounds a bit, you know, mind control-y, doesn't it? It sounds a bit sinister, to change someone's mind. But I suppose it's being done to us on a daily basis through marketing, isn't it? And people's posts and stuff like that. Anyway, this is a question politicians and canvassers think about all the time. Oh, I see. How can they best influence voters to support a specific cause? That's complex. We're not going to get into all of that right now. Many have started using a technique called deep canvassing, to garner support from voters, often with long-lasting impacts. Deep canvassing uses so I suppose we are going to talk about politics now, uses a person's specific experiences to guide them towards changing their views. People are resistant to persuasion when they feel pressure to admit their views are wrong, and when changing their opinions goes against their self-identity. Deep canvassing tries to change views without using persuasion. Instead, people are guided through non-judgmental... It's saying the same thing over and over again. Instead, people are guided through non-judgmental conversations about personal narratives related to the topic at hand. It'd be nice if we had some sort of straightforward example, because what we've said, again, in loads of words here, I'm not being harsh on PhD Caitlin. You know, there's a lot of interesting stuff here, that's why I'm reading it. So, you know, thumbs up. But I do think it's a bit wordy, a bit verbose. See how I used 2 different words for the same thing then? I could have just said it's a bit wordy. But if it was me, I'd have just said verbose. Anyway. I think what we're saying here is if you say, no, you're wrong, then people don't want to say... People are resistant to persuasion when they feel pressured to admit their views are wrong. Right, so if you're saying, well, you know, I want you to admit that you're wrong, then people are not going to say, yeah, I'll admit I'm wrong. I get that, right? So they're guided through non-judgmental conversations about personal narratives. I guess what that is, that's that funny questioning where We had a game on this. This would be funny. My sister will love this. We had a game of Fortnite the other night, and I think we should have gone up a hill, and the rest of the team didn't. And if I think what they're trying to say here is, if I said, "Oh, you should have gone up the hill. Admit it. You should have gone up the hill. Admit you were wrong," then they'd have gone, "No, I'm not admitting that." I get that, yeah. So then I would have had to have gone. People are guided through non-judgmental conversations. So, did you feel that moving towards or against the hill was in your best interests, in light of the fact that I don't mind if we win or lose the game? Something like that. I don't know. I don't know how you do these non-judgmental conversations about personal narratives related to the topic at hand. Maybe if someone wrote it in plain English, I'd understand. A recent paper from Joshua Caller and David Brookman provides an excellent example of how deep canvassing works. Oh, good. Instead of directly talking about unauthorised immigration, potential voters were asked to share a time when someone showed them compassion when they really needed it. Canvassers actively engaged in these stories in a non-judgmental way. So they didn't say it was good, they just didn't judge. Can you tell me a time when someone showed you compassion when you really needed it? And then you're telling me this story and I'm going, well, yes and no. Not really, not positive, not negative on that. Just listening. And eventually brought the conversation back to how the experience of the individual was similar to that of unauthorised immigrants. So you tell me your story, I was having a hard time and someone was nice to me. Yeah. And I go, yeah, I got my vote Scotty sticker on at this point. And I bring it around and I go like, so, in a lot of ways, you're like an immigrant. The people are going to be like, what? Yeah, no, in a lot of ways, honestly, listen, in a lot of ways, what happened to you is just like what's happening to those people. And they're going to go, yeah, no. Unless they learn to see life through the shoes of the others, like at the start of this, I'm not sure if that's going to work again. I mean, I can see why they think it'll work. Why you put someone in an emotional place and then you link that emotional place to the cause you're trying to draw out. I think in a way, there's something to be said here, the nucleus of this, something to be said about this and veganism, because when I talk to people about animals in general, or when I used to talk to people before I was vegan, I seem to have a different opinion on animals in general, the wildlife, the natural life that kills each other and eats each other and does whatever, and my own personal ownership of pets. And of course, I would never eat my dog, and like, if my dog died, I wouldn't eat it because it'd be a waste. I never thought about trying to, anyway, yeah, it's like, but then like you have this different emotional attachment to an animal that yourself in your life regularly, that you become friends with, that's part of your family. And then if you then start to tie that concept to animals in general, how they have their own lives, how they're all a bit like my dog, how they've all got their own personalities and wants, and how they can all feel content or scared. In general, I'm talking, obviously people can go, oh yeah, but can a fly feel content? And like, maybe they're happier in certain places. Who knows? Well, anyway, the point I'm making is that experience then is similar to the experience of other animals. And then I'm like, so now I see I can't, if I'm not going to do this, but like, because I think this about my dog, then maybe I think it about all the animals. Or maybe if I think this about all the animals, then maybe I should be less sentimental about my dog. Which is it? And then like you sort of see more clearly where the lines are drawn. So maybe that's true. Actively engaging in stories in a non-judgmental way, and eventually bringing those stories back to the thing that you want to drive the point home about. It's a bit of a long windy way around it. And in order to do this, talking to people that you don't agree with, talking about polarizing topics, in order to do that, I think you have to have quite an agile mind, or have thought this through beforehand. Because if you're just in the heat of the moment, in a discussion, down the pub, not going down the pub, are we? No one is. I've not been for 2 years now. Yeah, I mean, I didn't used to go because I wasn't drinking, but I used to sometimes pop in to see some friends. But yeah, lockdown, no pub. Yeah, if you're at the pub, which you're not, and you're chatting about a topic and someone's having a disagreement, then it's difficult to then stop and sort of say, okay, hang on, let me try and think about how I can use an example from this person's life to bring them round to the sentiment that I want them to think and feel, to then link it back to this. Because you'd be arguing and someone's saying, oh, but you said this and I think this about that. And you'd go, hang on. Why don't you tell me about when you were a kid and you used to have a little bike? And you'd be like, what? I'm not telling you about when I was a kid. No, I used to have a little bike. You fucking think this and this and this. I said the F word, then don't tell anyone I said the F word. Just keep that down. It just, you'd start, wouldn't you? So this is going to be difficult. Trying to bring it round to experience that's similar. Engaging in a personal narrative first. Let voters come to their own conclusions without feeling forced or pressured by canvassers. Gosh, maybe this is in America. Do you like Christmas? You also like presents. Remember how you felt when you got presents? Yeah? If you vote for me, it's like getting presents. Signed up, done. Right? It seems like a bit of a facile, obvious, transparent ploy. Do you like this? You also like this. Yeah, maybe it works for some people, but I think if you're thinking about what the person's saying to you and their motives, this is why this falls apart in my mind, is if someone came to my door and started talking, if they're political, canvassing, whatever, they might ask me to engage in a personal narrative first, but I'd say, no, I'm not doing that. Can you tell me what you're here for? What's your purpose? What are you driving at? And if they wouldn't be, overt about it, then I'd think, what are you trying to twist and sneak here? No, thank you. Please be overt and honest, or just leave. And then the other thing is that if they were overt enough in their, if they had a rosette that said, I am from this political party, or I represent this movement, or whatever, then I wouldn't have to engage in a personal narrative first, because I'd already be on to, oh, I know about you and what you think and what you say about this. Why don't we talk about X, Y, Z? So, yeah. If you're going to let a politician come up and canvass you, or a canvasser, I don't know what, maybe a canvasser doesn't have political affiliation, overtly. Maybe they're subverted. Maybe they're secret. What's the word? Maybe they are in disguise, or maybe they're not. Maybe they have no political allegiance whatsoever, but they wouldn't be trying to push an opinion if they didn't. So they must have a political opinion. So these disguised people that have come to put ideas in your mind, yeah, when they turn up at your door, if you're going to fall for that, then I've got a gold house you can buy. Right. Anyway, to change a person's opinion, focus the conversation on their personal narratives that parallel the topic, and let them change their views on their own. There is something to be said for that. Like I said, I think at the end of it all, I'm not going to argue with the case with the man in the pub to make him change his mind, but I could give him an example that he might go away and think about, or she, although I don't argue with ladies in the pub, so maybe not she. It's not polite. They could be non-binary. I argue with non-binary people. I'm happy to do that. I'm very pro LGBTQ everything. I'm pro that, pro inclusion, pro diversity, but not averse to arguing with someone. Number 3, actively listen and acknowledge the views and feelings of the other person. There's a lot of writing here. Okay, I'm going to try and whip through this because I know what they're going to say. You see why that's funny? Because I know what you're going to say. I don't have to listen to what you've written. But that's what it's about, isn't it? It's about actually taking it on board, really trying to think about what they're saying, and utilising the things they say in the things you reply to them. This is my guess before I've read this. It really helps if someone says, I think mountains are big because X, Y, Z, because of the big rocks they've got on them, and I think mountains are small. I could say to them, well, the big rocks on the mountains, and it shows them that I've heard what they said and I'm thinking about it, are, in my opinion, smaller than some of the big rocks we get down here. So the mountain might not be as big. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like actually saying the things that they say, actually addressing the concerns that they bring up. Yeah, shows that you're actively listening. I definitely think that, and also acknowledging the feelings of the other person. I used to be a hairdresser. When you're doing someone's hair, a lot of hairdressers think they're just having a conversation, and they're not. It's part of their service, not just service. You're not sucking up to them in that context. It's not part of the service to like bum them up. Oh yes, miss. Oh yes, everything they say is brilliant. It's not that. It's about this active listening to really understand what they're saying to you, and to prove that that's happening. It's often useful to start your sentences with you instead of I. Loads of people, I this, I that, I think this, I that, and then in response the other person says, oh yeah, I this, I that, I think this, I that, and all they're just doing is I, me, I. And if you're the servant, the providing the service, making someone feel comfortable, if you're in that role as hairdresser, then instead of saying I, you should be saying, listening to what I say, and then say, so you feel this, and you think this, and do you think this, and are you this, and even if you're regurgitating sometimes their ideas back to them in a slightly different syntax with different words, then they feel that they're being listened to and understood. And not only that, you are really listening to them and understanding them, which is so important if you're going to do something like cut their hair, because you want to know what they want, not what I think will look good on you. So, yeah, lessons from science communication and deep canvassing are useful when you've got a lot of knowledge on a subject. But what should you do in situations where you're not expert and you're trying to learn more yourself? Well, number one, I wouldn't be arguing. Because if you're not an expert and you don't know a lot, then why are you arguing with the people about a thing? Go away and educate yourself. That would be my number one tip there. Active listening is one of the most important tools for a productive conversation. So this is weird, because if you're arguing the case with someone and you think they know more than you, and you're going to listen to what they say and take it on board, then it's going to turn into not an argument, isn't it? It's just going to turn into you accepting their opinion. So yeah, anyway, this conversation strategy involves a variety of verbal and non-verbal cues during conversation. This means nodding and saying yes, and sort of being quiet, restating comments. Again, it's if someone says the mountains, in this instance now, it'll be if someone says the mountains are big because they've got big rocks, you say the big rocks contribute to a big mountain, and they go, yeah, I think they've understood what I'm saying there. Asking relevant questions. Can the rocks get any bigger? And demonstrating your attention. All right, yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah. Oh, I agree. Non-verbal cues and verbal cues to announce that you're concentrating. It'll keep the conversation flowing and allow the other person to open up about themselves and their feelings. They miss asking open-ended questions in particular. That's what I was saying about you as well. You ask people questions, not... if I want to find out how someone feels about something, I don't say, does that make you feel happy? Because it's a yes, no. It's like, yes, and then they've nothing to say about it. What I ask is, how does that make you feel happy? And if they say it doesn't, then I say, well, how does it make you unhappy? And they can then talk around a subject and have a space to fill with real feelings and words, not just the cued response to a question. So yeah, open-ended questions are important there. She talks about her father here. So she had a little chat with the dad. Anxiety over the election. So I think this is also written in a context. This is weird, isn't it? At first it was a context of science, and now they're talking about election anxiety. So households who have differing opinions politically. Active listening. Don't be afraid to briefly pause a conversation that's heating up. Heightened emotions can impact attitudes and perceptions. So what they're saying is if you start rowing and shouting, just leave it and come back when you're calm. That's fair enough. That's an obvious one. Everyone knows that. But it's difficult in the heat of the moment, isn't it? Because you're rowing and shouting and they've said what they've said, and you've got the thing in your brain that you want to say that fucking matches what they've said. So there's never a thing where you can just say, look, hang on. Unless this is what they talk about in being the bigger person. But it's not about being the bigger person. It's not about having a personal victory over the opposition because you're better than them, because you back down. It's not about... Like, they try and contextualise it like that because it's still about who's winning and who's losing. It's about realising that you're both losing if you're rowing and shouting, and that some things are not worth the row. So yeah, that was good, wasn't it? Remember this, productive and civil conversations with people who don't share your views are possible, especially with these 3 tips that it took 10,000 words to go through. Remember that simply throwing facts at a person won't change their mind. Use their past experiences to understand where they're coming from and shape the conversation accordingly. If your goal is to shape opinions, let them share stories on parallel experiences that can be connected. Genuinely try to share your feelings. I think people don't have problems with that, do they? Well, they share their feelings, yeah, but maybe some people have problems being genuine. Certainly on all these platforms where popularity equates to financial success, a little empathy can go a long way in building a positive and productive conversation with each other. See, maybe I'm being non-empathetic there, but I wasn't thinking of anyone in particular. I was just being generalising. Caitlin Vinton. Thank you, Caitlin. I did appreciate this article. It's something interesting for us to think about and talk about. I do think behavioural scientists, editors, whatever, I think that there's a lot of words here to say some really basic, sort of down-to-earth points. And I think the basic takeaway is, if you're arguing, in this context from this particular article, is if you're arguing with someone and you disagree with them, what they're basically saying is stop disagreeing with them, stop arguing about it, talk about their past, talk about their experiences, try and find out why they think what they think, then try and use an example from their past that matches the sentiment and the way you want them to think about the topic that you have been talking about. Get them to talk that through, point out that it's similar to the thing you've been talking about. I mean, will that work? It might work. I look forward to disagreeing with someone about something in the future and trying out these techniques. Yeah. I mean, sometimes knowing where the other person is coming from doesn't help, because you kind of think, knowing what you think they know, it limits how you feel they're going to be able to think about the things the way you think about them, because there's such difference. And I don't know how to necessarily bridge those differences if people haven't had experiences that contextually mirror the thing you want them to think about. I think there's a bit of a brick wall as well, isn't there? Can you remember a time that someone was compassionate to you? No, I can't. People aren't nice to me. Then you're not the same as immigrants. Well, you are the same as immigrants, because people are not nice to you. They're not nice to the immigrants either. So don't you feel better about immigrants now? I don't know. Maybe that works. It's interesting, isn't it? Certainly is.